They had met in the middle of a storm, both literal and metaphorical. At first, it was calm and quiet, and the future seemed like it could be filled with brightness. But the rain wasn't far away. Rain poured down as Emma stood under the flickering streetlight, her hair plastered to her face. She was running, from what, she wasn't sure. Maybe from herself. That's when he appeared, his leather jacket soaked, his eyes sharp and piercing. His name was Sean, and he had a way of looking at her that made her feel seen, but also exposed. Their connection was instant, electric. They were drawn to each other like moths to a flame, and just like moths, they knew they'd get burned. But neither cared. The heat was intoxicating. At first, it was perfect. Sean was passionate, intense, and protective. Emma felt alive in a way she never had before. But soon, the cracks began to show. His temper flared like a wildfire, consuming everything in its path. And Emma, though she tried to stand her ground, found herself pulled back into his orbit every time. She hated the way he made her feel small, but she loved the way he made her feel needed. Broken glasses, empty threats, violent words, the storm was brewing worse and worse. One night, after a particularly brutal argument, Emma packed her bags. She was done. She couldn't keep living like this, swinging between love and hate, hope and despair. But as she reached for the door, Sean's voice stopped her. "Don't go," he said, his voice raw and broken. "I can't lose you." And just like that, she stayed. Because despite everything, she loved him. And he loved her. But love wasn't enough to fix what was broken. The cycle continued. They'd fight, they'd hurt each other, and then they'd come back together, clinging to the fragments of what they once had. She wanted to run, but she didn't want to leave. Sean would apologize, his words dripping with regret, and Emma would forgive him, her heart too tender to let go. But the apologies grew hollow, and the forgiveness felt like a lie. As the storm raged on, thunder struck, hitting a tree. They stood staring at each other, the flames in their eyes wanting to ignite, but the fire was starting to turn to smoke. It felt like the troubling days were coming to an end. The next morning, the storm was over. They woke as the sun's rays broke through the aftermath of the previous broken days. Emma moved over to Sean, resting on his chest as she spoke softly. "Morning," she whispered. Sean, still feeling a little fire in him, wanted to shout at her not to touch him, but he stopped. Emma noticed and was glad he wasn't acting up. As Sean pondered, he thought he needed to stop. He thought about how, if he had yelled at her, she might have wanted to leave again, and he would have to follow her. He felt lost, but he knew he was lucky to have her. He thought about all the times he had hit her and the times she had hit back. He realized he couldn't handle it if she left, the flames would consume him. In the evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma turned to Sean. "Why do we keep doing this to each other?" she asked, her voice trembling. Sean didn't answer right away. He stared at the horizon, his jaw tight. "Because we're addicted to the pain," he finally said. "We love the way it feels to fall apart, just so we can put each other back together." Emma knew he was right. But she also knew that one day, there would be nothing left to put back together. The flame that had once warmed them had nearly consumed them, and they needed to stop it. In the end, they didn't. They kept dancing around the fire, each step bringing them closer to the edge. And when they finally fell, it was with the bittersweet realization that some loves are meant to burn out, not to last.